Hello, my fellow modeling and tabletop gaming enthusiasts, and welcome to this week's episode of the Konflikt Ketchup on the Mediocre Modeler Show. I feel like I've been really rushed this week. It's like I was rushed to get out the regular Wednesday episode, and of course, we didn't have the new article drop on Wednesday. It didn't drop until Friday, till today. So I'm recording this Friday night. But we did get our new weekly Conflict 47 article, and that is all about the tools of annihilation, Axis Schwerfeld weaponry. I don't know what's the proper pronunciation, Schwerfeld or Schwerfeld. I like the second one. It just sounds, I don't know, it sounds cooler. So that's how I'm going to say it. It's probably wrong, so please forgive me. But let's go ahead and let's get caught up on what happened in Conflict 47 this week. So, as always, I will put the link to the article down in the description. But this week we're going to be talking all about gravity weapons. So the article starts out that Green Vault scientists were in reinforced armored bunkers several miles from Dresden when the atomic bomb was dropped. And at the time, they had a whole bunch of sensors and data collection devices aimed at where they thought the bomb was going to drop in Dresden, which is kind of interesting. They knew it was coming. They knew something was going to happen. So, I think that's kind of interesting. They got their fingers somewhere, the Green Vault, doing sneaky things for hundreds of years. But they got an absolutely massive amount of data from the rift opening in Dresden. So that, and they were doing everything they could immediately to try and analyze this data and explore, what it all meant, what they could do with it. So after months and months of studying, they started to come up with something. But kind of the first thing that they found was that the rift had a very direct and unnatural impact on the Earth's gravity. And as soon as they realized that, they just kind of sprang into work and trying to figure out how they could harness that power, harness that gravitational distortion to their benefit. And part of how they discovered this is they had scientific scouting parties going through the city, and the survivors, the ones that actually came back, would describe when they came across one of these anomalies that men were just crushed as though hit by a steam hammer, or they were torn limb from limb. And even those furthest from the anomalies were describing their bodies feeling as though they were many more times heavier than normal. They began to establish these research facilities around Dresden, what was known as the Shrek Zone, and then they started to figure out how they could weaponize this. So how they could isolate these gravitational distortions, how they could stabilize them, and then how they could weaponize them. And they used some testing rigs, and found out they were able to control this high gravity pulse. And they started referring to these as Schwerfeld or heavy field. And it worked by amplifying the Earth's natural gravity to many times its normal levels. And they could project these strong magnetic fields. And of course, as it travels through the air, it interacts with both the Earth, the Earth's gravitational fields, and it grows in strength and potency until it reaches a critical point. And early experiments in late 1944, by late 1944, some of these early experiments had shown some promise, and Axis High Command ordered these research teams out of the labs in Dresden and had them start collaborating with the arms industry to start developing mass scale production of these weapons. So in early 1945, they had a workable prototype that became known as the Schwerfeld projector, kind of the OG version as we know it. It was ready for field trials in March 1945, and what they ended up doing, it looked, the big spherical array looked like an eyeball, as it's described, and was mounted on a repurposed Pack 40 carriage, but it required so much power that it had to have a secondary generator attached to it. So, in order to transport the Schwerfeld projector, you'd have to have two vehicles, one for the weapon itself and then another one for its generator. Just incredibly huge power demands. But it was kind of a little unreliable. Um, with additional testing, it was put into full-scale production, and the intent was to replace half of the Axis's conventional anti-tank guns by about mid-1946. So they were able to make a number of improvements incorporating their latest RIF-Tech developments and new power plants, and they developed a new carriage for better mobility. And they did additional work to the range finding system so that it would be easier to train and use the weapon. So all the gunner would have to do would be identify the target and then determine the range, and then they had a set table they could compare that against, which would tell them what power setting they needed. Excuse me. So that then they would know what the required power requirements would be in order to develop a Schwerfeld anomaly in the vicinity of the target. And this also allowed the projector to be fired quickly in a series of low power waves or to unleash a single devastating pulse. The artwork for the pictures they've got in this article are just absolutely fantastic. It was finally in June of 1945 when they first saw their limited combat deployment of the Schwerfeld projectors in the Low Countries. They found they had some issues with the electronics being a little sensitive to wet weather, and also found there were some issues with these magnetic fields just wreaking havoc with radios and compasses. But the devastating effects of their fire on both infantry and vehicles were very quickly endeared them to Axis commanders. Cover it didn't mean anything to a Schwerfeld projector. Cover didn't save you from gravity. So it became rightfully feared by Commonwealth and U.S. forces, and as well as the Soviets when they reached the Eastern Front in October of 1945. As always, they were continuing to make additional advancements on everything, and they figured out that what they wanted to do was improve the mobility. Wood weapons obviously they're more of a hassle to get moved around a field. But if you can put that weapon on a chassis of some sort, make it self-mobile, you may be onto something. So they found that they eliminated the traditional turret as well as the loader position in armored vehicles, that they could mount a Schwerfeld projector. Adapted it to the Panzer IV, the Panther, so your Panzer IV-X, your Panther X, as well as your Puma hull, so the Puma X. And it worked very well. However, it was noted that these magnetic fields would wreak havoc on electronics and would also cause metal fatigue over time. So as always, the continuing evolution of new technology. In May of 1946, they began to improve the vehicle-mounted versions of the Schwerfeld projector into the Maschinengewehr. So it was lighter and smaller than the original Schwerfeld projector, and was meant to act more as a coaxial machine gun or light autocannon, sort of as a support weapon on these armored vehicles. But it kind of ended up being the better of the two options. So the look of it was revised. It was a conical projector array with an integrated generator, so you didn't have the separate generator. It makes me wonder if we might get an updated Maschinengewehr. Well, this is more the vehicle-mounted version, so they might not have a towed version of it. I think it would look kind of cool, but we'll see. So, and this kind of resolved some of the issues because they increased the magnetic shielding, so you didn't have as much difficulty with these magnetic fields playing around with your electronics and stuff like that. And it was first adapted in late 1946 on the new Vogelspinner light walker. And the success of this and initial testing and everything, and the success of adapting it to the Vogelspinner led to a scaled up version, same as they started with a smaller version of the the Schwerfeld projector, and that they adapted it to the now legged Panzer IV chassis in early 1947. And again, it's quickly apparent that it was the superior design. But they still use the original Schwerfeld projectors as defensive emplacements. And man, that new Panzer IV-X looks pretty cool. I mean, I've spent a good portion of the week repainting my original Panzer IV-X. I was never really happy with it. Sidebar. That, and I switched the colors that I was using after I painted my first two vehicles, which were my Panzer IV-X and my original spinner Light Walker. So they didn't have the same dark yellow. I think because originally I used like Vallejo dark yellow, and then I switched to Ammo by MiG Dunkelgelb. So I decided to repaint those ones. The two that I had done in that color scheme. Still doing the same modified 3-tone ambush scheme, but yeah. Anyway, originally the Schwerfeld projector batteries, so the towed version's been operated by just regular artillerymen, but they were being deployed into more and more intense combat, and so they needed to really learn how to, they needed to better protect the crews. And just the design of the weapon didn't really suit it for a gun shield. So what they ended up figuring out is that soldiers wearing the Panzer Harnisch 46 powered armor could still very effectively operate the weapon. So a number of units were re-equipped and retrained with the heavy armor to be able to better withstand combat and still operate the Schwerfeld projector. So that's the version that I have, is the one with the armored crew. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how they perform on the tabletop. So we've got two versions of it now. We've got the original Schwerfeld projector, and then we've got the Maschinengewehr, sort of the new one. So their basic profiles put out a couple of shots with a pretty good pen, which are perfect for dealing with light vehicles or troops. And they really start to shine or glow, as the article says, using their gravity pulse rift ability. So their basic profile for the Maschinengewehr is 36-inch range, 2 shots, +2 pen, and then team fixed rift weapon and gravity pulse special rules. And then the OG Schwerfeld projector is 48-inch range, 2 shots, 4+ pen or +4 pen, team fixed rift weapon and gravity pulse. So what that allows them to do is place a 3-inch template anywhere in range and line of sight, and they roll to hit any models caught underneath it with the weapon's total number of shots. So, excuse me. So that means a unit can take a staggering number of hits. Against vehicles, it will generate a seriously high pen hit, and in addition, cover is no protection. If you exhaust a surging rift die, you can activate its overload ability, which gives you an extra shot, which means you have even higher potential for more hits on a target. So the gravity pulse rift weapon ability states that when executing a fire or advance order, including when resolving an ambush, a unit with gravity pulse weapons can opt to exhaust a rift die to generate a gravity pulse effect. So this would be your active rift die. You could use a surging rift, I assume, but you'd want to save that for overload. This uses a 3-inch diameter template. Place the template anywhere within range and line of sight of the projector. Note, line of fire is not needed. Then roll to hit each model underneath it with the number of shots indicated for the weapon. If a vehicle model is hit by multiple shots from the gravity pulse and the pen values together, add the pen values together and roll for damage as a single hit with that pen modifier. Cover saves and benefits from down orders do not apply against a gravity pulse. Shots against vehicles strike the top armor. Any unit that is hit by a gravity pulse template suffers D2 pin markers. So it basically allows you, you can pump extra shots into them and then, slap some pins on them too. So the overload ability, again, you have to exhaust your surging rift die, increases its shot value by 1. So then the unit making the overload attack suffers D2 pin markers immediately after the attack has been concluded. So those are going to be pretty nasty, I think. Pretty fun, too. I got to read up on, my bolt action rules just to make sure I fully understand some of this stuff, how it's going to work. But I think that's pretty neat. How neat is that? Bonus points if you can tell me what that's from. And I'm just loving this second edition artwork they got. So we look at some of these, they've got the Vogelspinner in the background. Looks pretty cool. It's the original Schwerfeld projector. It's kind of goofy looking, just that big ball, but I mean, it looks cool. It's like when I, did the review on the Panther X. Just, I mean, that looks pretty sweet, honestly. So, so that wraps it up for this week's community article. So I think another thing I'm going to do for the next couple weeks with the Konflikt Ketchup, and I might even keep the Konflikt Ketchup going a little bit. It might just be a little more intermittent than every week, but we'll keep things moving. So I've been working on commission stuff this week again, but I have also tried to put in some time on my personal projects. So what I've been working on this week is, again, my Panzer IV-X, as well as I started painting a command team of Fallschirmjägers, winter Fallschirmjägers from my Battle of the Bulge starter set. I just thought, you know what, they're in winter camo. I'm kind of modeling the bases as winter. It's like they would fit pretty well. And then I've kind of got some gun fodder, some cannon fodder, it'll at least have like some assault rifles and stuff. It'd be kind of cool. And it'd be fun to paint. I've never done anything quite like that before, so that should be fun to do. I think last week I might have mentioned that I built my mud skipper, and then built a forward observer team for my SS mortar, as well as I got my heavy armored Germans, my Panzer Harnisch 46 Germans, on new bases. I can't remember if I talked about any of that last week. With the mud skipper, I did magnetize the arm weapons so I can have either the HMGs or the bazookas, in case I haven't talked about it. But in other news, got a bit of a mail call, so ordered a few more things. I mean, I can't help myself. So these are all brand new. I ordered these from Kick-Ass Mail Order. Really great company, just a few states away, so it ships pretty quick. I got the Wolfen SS, so it's got the Wolfen officer as well as another werewolf. I don't like the sculpt on this werewolf as much as I like the Schreckwolfen, but it'd be another one. But I mainly got it for the other figure because I think that would make a really kind of bespoke platoon commander, which would be really cool to have her leading the Schreckwolfen with like a squad of just cannon fodder behind him to back him up or something like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. Kind of be my Ilsa. And then I also picked up Hauptmann Heinrich Gross. So I've always liked the look of this. Plus the 3 bodyguards he's got with him and the medic, I think are really, really, really cool. Really well done. So again, another platoon leader, or possibly even company commander, or potentially put him just with some regular bodyguards. I don't know. And then I could have, potentially I could get 2 platoon leaders out of this. And then, of course, you got the specialist medic. So those are going to be fun to do, be fun to have, or I could just make a whole team out of them. That'd be kind of cool. Either way, it's gonna be cool. But the thing I was realizing I was kind of lacking on platoon leaders for infantry for the Germans, for the Axis. Even for my Americans, I've got a heavy armor platoon leader, platoon commander. But for, any weapon teams or an engineer platoon, because I'd like to take a flamethrower with my Marines, but I have to have a platoon, I have to have an engineer platoon to do it. So we'll have to figure that out. I don't know how far down that rabbit hole I'm actually going to go. But I did, after talking about Tesla weapons last week, I did finally go in and bought myself my US Tesla anti-tank gun. So I had to go ahead and do that. And now I think about it, I got to look at these figures and see how hard they're going to be convert to Marine heads, because their heads might be modeled on. But anyway, I'll get those guys. Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm glad to have one of these finally. It was going to be interesting to put it together. There aren't really any instructions on the box. It's not that many pieces, but it's just trying to fit the whole thing together, make sure it fits properly. It's going to be kind of interesting. So yeah, so that's what we've got for the Konflikt Ketchup this week. So definitely check out the article on gravity weapons on the Warlord Games website. Link is down in the description. I did find out this week that the USS Cobia has been delayed going to dry dock. I guess the winds on Lake Michigan were pretty intense the day they were supposed to leave, so they made the decision to postpone it for a little while. So hopefully they're able to get some decent weather sometime soon, and they can get her on up to the shipyard. But definitely check out the Wisconsin Maritime Museum website to keep up to date on that, as well as my social media links and Warlord Games affiliate links. So I'm hoping that within the next week or two, pre-orders will probably begin to start shipping. There were some pictures and videos out today that they have got all the stuff in at Warlord HQ. So that's going to be pretty awesome. There's been a lot of previews and stuff with the rules coming out too. Haven't really had a chance to look into them a whole lot yet. And I was at work today. It's kind of a busy, hectic, crazy day. So we'll see if I can get to some of that this weekend. But yeah, so thank you very much, folks, for watching. I sure do appreciate it. You guys know just how much I appreciate it. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. So Max, thanks for the comments. Appreciate it, buddy. Also, be sure. I don't know if it's going to be out till later. It might be out by the time some of you watch it, but my friend Max at Barefoot Miniatures recorded a game of new Konflikt 47. So definitely check out Barefoot Miniatures on YouTube. You should be able to get a battle report of the new Konflikt 47 today. So I will put that link in the description as well for you guys to go check that out. So again, thank you so much for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed the show. And until next time, may your paints be thin, your brushes be pointy, and your dice be hot.